have a panel of resident experts here with me, and let me sort of go ahead and quickly introduce some of them to you folks. First, I would like to call upon Vivek. Vivek is our founder and CEO at Live Life. Vivek and I go back a long time, and like me, Vivek has had a fairly long corporate career. He worked with a number of, I would say, a number of prominent corporates, and but I think his claim to fame is his last stint, where he was the CEO of a startup, of a financial services startup called Fintelix, which he grew over a period of I think 6 or 7 years, and eventually raised capital from some of the top venture capital funds in the country, and went on to take an exit when he sold Fintelix to a US-based Nasdaq-listed firm. While it was a great journey for him from a personal viewpoint, Vivek, who was sort of grappling with diabetes, saw that his condition had started to worsen, and despite sort of following everything that doctors advised him to do, he could not get a handle on why his diabetes wasn't getting better. Right? So once he had some time on his hands, he decided to look into the problem himself. And while he was solving it for primarily for himself, he realized that the solution that he came about could be potentially useful to the several million diabetics all across the country. And that's when he sort of set up Live Life, and that's how our journey started as a startup. Right? So Vivek will obviously talk a little bit more about the company and about himself as we go along towards the end of the program. But let me quickly move on and introduce Monica Manchanda to you folks as well. So Monica is actually our Chief Culinary Officer. So what that means is that she handles our nutritional planning. She handles our food preparation, the kitchen operations, all of that come under her. She also wears a second hat, in terms of helping us out on some of our marketing. She's quite versatile that way. So Monica incidentally started off her career as a techie. After spending some time there, she realized that her true calling lay elsewhere. She was quite a foodie even before that, but I think she decided to make her passion into a career, and that's when she decided to sort of switch from into the food business. So she's done a bunch of courses in food sciences, including one from Harvard. She has a digital platform through which she engages with the larger, I would say, larger digital crowd in the country. It's actually quite popular. She's quite a renowned, I would say, digital personality. And like I said, at Live Life, Monica has been instrumental in making sure that the food component of what we do is obviously not just nutritionally what we want it to be, but it's also tasty, it looks nice, it's presented very well, and everyone has an enjoyable experience while sort of going through our program. Right? So that's Monica in a nutshell. I also have a third panelist who is Sanjay Pujari. So Sanjay heads our physical activity practice. Physical activity at Live Life, is primarily exercise, yoga, and meditation combined together in a rather interesting manner. So Sanjay is a physiotherapist. He's been practicing for, I would say, the past 11 years or so. His specialty is in sports medicine. If you prefer a tongue twister, I think it's called musculoskeletal injuries is what he specializes in treating. Now he has been instrumental in. The problem that was in front of him when he came aboard at Live Life was quite unique because unlike people who are generally physically fit, most people who would come to Live Life would be would be suffering from one lifestyle condition or the other. And so Sanjay was tasked with creating a program that would be suitable for people who who are quite, I would say, mobility impaired in some way, right? And Sanjay and his team have done a fantastic job of that at Reward Life, and to the point where we have multiple levels of our program being offered at multiple times during the day, and people are sort of very gently pushed along in the sequence to the point where they're able to regain some of what they lost to lifestyle diseases, right? So that's Sanjay. Um, so that's about all I want to say in terms of introducing our panelists. Let me talk for a few minutes about our format. Like I briefly mentioned before, so the way this is going to go is that our panelists, who are, like I said, experts in the science around diabetes, and they all have their individual areas of competencies, have put up a set of, I would say, statements for you folks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take each statement and put it up as a poll. It's going to sort of pop up on your screen. Um, and each poll statement is followed by 3 opinions. Okay? So the task in front of you, ladies and gentlemen, is to pick the opinion that you think you agree with the most. Right? So I'm going to give you about 30 seconds to a minute for of these each of these statements, and some of these are a little, I would say, tricky. So in a way, our panelists are sort of on a mission to try and test how knowledgeable you folks are. So so good luck to the audience, and why don't we sort of get started with the first of the opinion polls that I'm going to set out for you folks. So just give me 1 second while I bring up the poll. Yeah. So the first statement that we have for you is about the balance between food and exercise. So what this statement says is that as long as we exercise, we can pretty much eat whatever we like, right? All of our favorite foods, we can indulge in them as long as we exercise it off. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and launch this poll. You should see it in a second. There you go. So as you can see, there's the statement on the top, and there are 3 opinions below it. So why don't you guys go ahead, see what these statements are, and go ahead and cast your vote. So like I said, I'm going to give you maybe about 30-40 seconds each to go ahead and cast your vote. Okay, so looks like people have got the hang of voting on this platform. I see about half the audience has already voted. I want to give a few more seconds before we pause this particular poll. Okay, anybody else wanting to get their votes in, please go ahead and do that right away. Okay, let me go ahead and pause this poll. And I am going to share the results with you folks. There we go. So as you can see, we have about 50% of the crowd going with option 1, and the other 50% of the crowd going with option 3. Option 1 says, yes, we agree. We just need to keep track of how many calories we ate, and everything is going to be hunky-dory. But option 3, which I'm surprised people chose this, is that homemade food can actually be bad even if we exercise, right? So let me go ahead and ask Vivek, what do you say about this? What's your reaction, Vivek? Do you think the audience got it right?
I think 50% kind of got it right. The other 50%, I think, want to get it right, but may not necessarily be right. And the reason I say that is, many of us believe that if we eat food at home, it is healthy, whereas if we eat outside, it's not. Many of us believe that we can exercise our way out of trouble. To a limited extent you can, but not at the cost of eating bad food, right? So I think my clear takeaway would be with the 50% and talking to the other 50%, it's less about home, less about eating outside, etc. It's more about what you eat, and I think that matters a lot more. The point I would like to say to the people who are talking about exercise versus calories, exercise absolutely essential, right? But it is independently essential for good health, and it does not compensate, let's say, for the problems that bad nutrition can provide. And even in the bad nutrition, I think it's less about the calories you consume, but more about the quality of the calories you consume, right? So there are certain things, for example, 100 calories from eating a donut versus 100 calories from eating a salad, right? The calories are the same. So it's less about the calories, but the quality of the calories that matter than the quantity of the calories. And exercise, absolutely, you must do, but not as a compensation of bad nutrition. I mean, getting nutrition right and doing your fitness are two independent goals that drive you towards better health.
All right. Thank you, Vivek. Okay. So as you can see, the questions tend to be a little bit on the nose here, but the next one is, I think, I would say, quite simple. This is about a link between diabetes and our genes, right? So if our parents or grandparents are diabetic, what does it say about our ability to go ahead and get diabetes as well, right? So that's what this question is all about. So let me go ahead and launch this quick poll for you folks. Here we go. So the statement reads, if our parents or their grandparents had diabetes, we would inevitably get it. So why don't you folks go ahead and mark whatever you think you agree with the most. All right, looks like quite a few of the early votes are in. All right, anybody else wanting to vote, please go ahead and get your votes in. Okay, I'm going to be ending the poll in a few seconds now. Okay, looks like some more people are voting in. If I want to wait for a couple more seconds. Okay, here we go. Let me end the poll. And I'm going to share the results out here. Looks like the audience is going with option 3. So we getting diabetes has nothing to do with our preceding generations, right? This is going to be interesting. Vivek, what do you say? Do you think you agree with the bulk of the audience here?
I think so, right? But I think the real answer is in the middle, which is neither option A nor option C, right? Uh, Obviously, it has something to do with our previous generation. Genes do play a role. But I think the perspective I want to share on this is that, you know, genes make us predisposed to certain things. But what really ensures that those get expressed is the choices that we make. So just because we have a genetic predisposition to a particular kind of a disease doesn't guarantee that we'll get it. And just because we do not have a genetic predisposition also does not guarantee that we get it, right? I think if you have a genetic predisposition, we just have to be a little extra careful. But in reality, it is our lifestyle choices, what we eat, when we eat, the fitness approach that we adopt, when do we sleep, right? Do we get stressed? All of which matter more in the manifestation of diabetes, which is one point. The second point I'd like to make is we do inherit some of these, but it's not genetic, right? What it means is, as we are growing up, the food that we like are what our parents feed us, right? When we sleep, our approach to fitness, etc., are things that we pick up typically from our upbringing. So to that extent, when, let's say, if my parents have diabetes, is my chance of getting diabetes high? My answer is yes, but it's less about genes, but it's more about the practices that I've chosen, and that the way I live my life to a large extent, most likely, is similar to the way I have been brought up, right? So if there were wrong choices made, and which is why, generation after generation after generation, there can be, and you blame it on the genes, but I think it's, like I said, little less about the genes and more about transmissibility of lifestyle practices and how we adopt them. And more importantly, if we do the bad lifestyle, it doesn't matter whether we have a genetic predisposition or not, we will still end up with the diabetes. And on the other hand, if we adopt the right practices, despite having a genetic predisposition, it will not show up.
Okay, so looks like our audience has been kind of getting it sort of right, but not fully right so
Not fully
far.
right. Yeah.
Yes. Let's see what they do with the next question. This is the link between physical activity and diabetes. So here, let me go ahead and launch this particular poll. Can physical activity actually cure diabetes? Okay, so three statements here. Um, please go ahead, take a look. A couple of them might sound a little similar. So yeah, take a close look before you go ahead and answer. So I'm going to give a little extra time for this, considering that the options are a little long and a little confusing. Okay. Interesting. Anybody else wants to get their votes in? Go ahead. This is your time. Few more seconds. And let me go ahead. Pause. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and end the poll now. Here we go. I think the first time ever there's a mix in the audience across all three options. So let me go ahead and share the results on the screen. So it looks like the audience, or rather the majority of the audience, believes that physical activity can help manage diabetes better and prevent it from becoming worse. Sanjay.
Yes, the audience are definitely right in this. They got the answer right. Yeah. So physical activity, if you have diabetes, physical activity will help in maintaining your glucose homeostasis. It might or might not help in reduction of HbA1c. Even if it does, it is by like 1 to 1.5% without a good diet. Like in the previous question, food versus exercise regimen, like Vivek was telling us, donut and salad will have the same calories. It can have 100 calories, but your salad will help in faster recovery and it does a lot good to your body than donut. So in this case, like how much ever I want to say that physical activity can cure diabetes, but in reality, it doesn't. It helps in managing it and it will prevent it from getting worse. But if you want to reverse it, it has to be clubbed with the right food.
Absolutely. But option one sounds so kind of seems logical, no? That
Yeah,
the more
it's
intense you
preventing
exercise,
diabetes. Yeah,
yes,
so we are not talking about curing the diabetes. Yeah, if you're
correct.
physically active, but even in that, if you're doing high intensity exercise like running, sprinting, and everything, and if you eat bad food, like just like how Vivek was telling us, there might be a small gene which wants to get triggered and put you into the diabetes zone. Food is the source of the fuel that enters our body. If the fuel is good, the out like our health will be good. Otherwise, we might end up getting into some trouble.
Sure. Thank you, Sanjay. Let's move along to the next question in our poll. Now, one of the things that we do the moment we are diagnosed as being diabetic is obviously we get rid of sugar, right? But some of us go an extra mile. We, sort of eliminate white rice and we try to substitute it with better alternatives, right? So this next question is all about these alternatives. So let me go ahead and launch this poll. What happens, if you eliminate or if you replace rice with alternatives like wheat, brown rice, oats, ragi, etc. Okay. Audience, go ahead, take a crack. Okay, looks like people are taking some time to think about it. This is obviously a question that's a little, I would say, a dusra. So looks like, obviously we have support for two different options here. All right. So let me go ahead and pause the poll. Anybody else wanting to get your votes in? Now's your time. Okay, this is interesting. So one of the options actually took the lead, and then a second option came, came within. Well, it's actually equal now. So let me share the results here. So looks like half the audience believe that this will work, and half the audience believes that we should not consume these alternatives either. Monica, which half do you agree with and why?
Very interesting polling, I would say, for this. Usually, when we talk to people, the polling is somewhere in the middle, saying that some of these options will work, but our audience seems to be split between both the extremes today, which is very interesting to note.
Right.
Half of the audience is right, and
Obviously.
half the half of them is right. Interestingly, one of the before I actually answer this question, one of the things to know and remember when we talk about diabetes and sugar is that our body and the blood processes sugar and carbohydrate pretty much the same way. So only eliminating sugar from your diet is not really going to fully cure your diabetes. It is what we eat apart from that in terms of carbs also. And white rice, red rice, wheat, ragi, bajra, and all of them are essentially carbohydrates. The range of these carbohydrates may differ from white rice being at 86 and ragi being at 83 and bajra being at 75. When I say this, it is essentially 75 grams of carbohydrates in 100 grams of individual item. But if you see, the difference is not really drastic. So all of them is something we must avoid if we really want to reverse our diabetes and cure our diabetes. Management is a different deal altogether, but for curing it, we really must avoid all of these. So as much as we would like to say the first half of the audience was right, it is the second half that was right, and we must really avoid all of them. And the reason primarily is the fact that all of them are above 70% carbs in 100 grams of it.
Right. Some surprising information there. Okay. Moving right along. We spoke about the impact of food. We spoke about the impact of exercise. Now let's talk about the impact of medicines on diabetes, right? So, we get a fever, we go to the doc gives us medicines, we take it and our fever goes away. Is the same true for diabetes? Let me go ahead and launch this poll that says our medicines are actually helping us cure our diabetes. So let's see what the audience thinks about this. Okay, the first of the votes are coming in now. Okay. Looks like almost all of the votes are in. I'm going to give a few more seconds for anybody else to go in and get their votes in. Okay, we have an interesting split here. Okay, let me go ahead and end this poll right about now and go ahead and share the results. Okay, so a whopping 80% of our audience believes that medicines are managing our symptoms but making the core function of our bodies worse. Whereas 20% believe that they don't cure, but they're providing our bodies with hormones that are missing and which we aren't producing by ourselves. Okay, Vivek, 80%, 20%. Where does your vote lie?
No, I think it's great to see the audience get this one right. I would have suspected that most would go between the first and the second option, and not with the third option. But that being said, I think the majority of the audience has gotten right, which is great. But just to kind of shed a little color on this, essentially the problem with type 2 diabetes, if you look at the hormonal imbalance, is higher but ineffective insulin as opposed to lack of insulin, which is why the second option is not true. They don't provide our bodies with missing hormones. Our body doesn't have missing hormones. Our body has hormones that are not working well, right? So the medicines that we take, in fact, make the symptom better, but the underlying root cause worse, right? And for example, the one of the root causes for diabetes is something called insulin resistance. Now, some of the medicines that we take actually increase the level of insulin, or if we inject insulin, it increases the level of insulin, which in the short term might help in reducing the glucose levels, but in the long run, it's actually making our insulin resistance worse, right? So it's not the solution. A, medicines, of course, don't cure us, right? B, they don't even provide us with missing hormones. What they do is manage the symptoms in the short term, whereas the underlying condition actually becomes worse. Which is why I think one needs to be, not all medicines, but certain class of medicines, what are called sulfonylureas and TZDs, etc., or insulin, kind of make your underlying condition worse. So, if any one of you are on medication, does your medication, is it helping you or harming you? Do reach out separately, and we're happy to help you figure out and ensure that even if you want to be on medication, you choose the right one, which doesn't harm you. It is obviously not helping you. And obviously reach out to us if you actually want to fix the underlying root cause, which is a discussion we're happy to say.
Right. So thanks, Vivek. Let's go right along to the next question on my list. This is about, and one of the things that doctors tell you apart from medications is to split your meals into multiple small meals, right? This is an advice that a lot of us get a lot of the time. This is the next question is on precisely this point. Let me go ahead and launch it. Diabetics should eat several small meals in a day. Is that correct? Okay, first of the votes coming in. I'm going to wait for a few more seconds for the rest of the folks to catch up. All right, looks like all three options have their respective fans now, and the votes are coming in quite rapidly at this point. Let me give a few more seconds. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and end this poll right now, and go ahead and share the results with you folks. So interestingly, the first option that got support was the third one. We should eat 2 big meals and eat healthy snacks like nuts and fruits at several points during the day. But then the other two options quickly overtook it. So I'm going to sort of go ahead and ask Monica, which of the three options do you go ahead and agree with? The people who voted early or the people who voted late?
It's a very interesting split, and I think I part agree with the people who voted early and part agree with people who voted late.
That's a politician answer, Monica.
Yeah, and let me just explain why. So technically, if you look at purely from the functioning of curing your diabetes, we should definitely eat 2 meals a day and nothing else in between, because each time we eat, insulin response is generated, and that is what when your body is not really functioning well, that is what increases our insulin resistance and compounds the problem to a large extent. However, when doctors tell us that you have to eat many small meals a day, and it will keep your blood glucose level in control, it is primarily because of the medicine we are eating. Because when you are eating the medicine and you don't eat, your blood sugar levels can drop, and that can be dangerous. So if you are not on a medication and you're having 2 large meals a day is what you should have uh, for curing it. But if you are in medication, you might have to manage that by having this. But that's what ultimately it is. And that is why I said that I partly agree with this and partly agree with that. And I don't want to disappoint any of our users, large bucket of users voting. So
All right, that's fine. Thank you, Monica. Let me go ahead and stop sharing this particular question and move on to yet another factor that we are not really sure whether this actually has how much of an impact it has got. This factor is sleep, right? So in general, is sleeping good? I mean, we've sort of been told that, by our parents right from the time we grew up that, too much of sleeping is not really a productive use of our time. So let me go ahead and launch this question on the relationship between sleep and diabetes. Here we go. Looks like the audience is yet to get a hang of this. Oh yeah, I see the votes starting to come in very rapidly. Looks like a little more than half the audience has already voted. Okay. By my count, I think everybody on the group has go ahead and put in their votes. Let me stop this particular poll and share the results on your screen right now. Okay, looks like the bulk of the audience, 60% of them believe that it's very important that we get 7 hours of uninterrupted sleep every day. But option one, which says, well, if you can manage with 5 hours, then why not manage, right? Why should we spend more time in bed? As it is, there are a gazillion things for us to do. That has got its own share of fans. And a second set of guys saying that it's okay if you can't get it all in one go at night. We can always take a nap in the afternoon or maybe make up for it for the weekend. So let me see. I'm going to go ahead and put this question to Vivek. Vivek, who do you agree with? Option one, option two, or the fans of option three?
I go with the majority. I think that seems to be the theme of the day for my set of questions, and clearly important. But I think, again, I'd like to talk about why. Because all my life, I would have voted with option one, right?
Right.
And that's how I've acted, right? And now that I understand, obviously, I'm making proactive efforts to ensure I sleep well. The reason why it's important to get that continuous set of sleep is not about rest and rejuvenation, which we may be able to, get the energy to do what we need with a fewer hours of sleep. But it's more about the process of cellular maintenance, what is called autophagy. So bad cells, weak cells get recycled and new cells get created, and hence, garbage, biological garbage in our body gets cleared, when we sleep. And it is in one phase of when we sleep. So if you don't sleep well, or even if you're sleeping well, I'll just combine it with nutrition. If you've just eaten a meal and then gone to bed, our body will still be digesting the food, right? And if it is, then the maintenance does not start. So two conditions to ensure your cellular maintenance works well. One, ensure you've had your dinner at least 3 to 4 hours before you go to bed, because not only should you have had dinner, but the entire digestion of that should have completed. Second, ensure you sleep enough, because it is when you sleep, when we have cycles of sleeping, that there are phases. there's something called as a deep sleep phase. And that is when there's a particular hormone called growth hormone that gets generated, which helps in driving autophagy, which ensures that we don't have bad, weak cells in the body. And if we end up sleeping less and for bad cells to accumulate in the body, it takes us towards a path of accelerated aging and a higher susceptibility to disease.
That's interesting. Thank you, Vivek. Like you said, even I would have sort of gone the other way before I became part of Live Life. Okay, moving right along. Let's dig in a little bit into our food and talk about carbohydrates in particular. This seems to be a little bit of a controversial topic. So let me go ahead and launch this poll. And the poll says that carbohydrates are essential for us and they should be part of every meal. After all, isn't that what a balanced meal is all about, right? And here are the three options there. Please go ahead and choose whatever you think is, is most true. It looks like the audience is taking its time to think about this one, which is not a bad sign. So I start to see the votes coming in now. Last few votes remaining. Okay, folks, anybody else, please hurry up. I'm going to close the poll in a few seconds. Okay, here I go. I'm going to end the poll right now and put the results up on the screen. Are carbohydrates essential? Looks like option 1 and option 3 are both sort of seeing good amount of support. Option 1 says that it doesn't matter if the diet is low in carbohydrates, it's actually good for us. There's no harm caused. Option 3 says that we should improve the kind of carbohydrates that we eat. Carbohydrates are needed, but we have to replace, some of the lower quality carbohydrates with higher quality carbohydrates. Okay, so let me see, what does our Chief Culinary Officer, Monica, have to say about this from a nutritional perspective?
I think from all my questions, I have people splitting equally between the right and wrong options. Again, I think we have here and there. But in this particular case, I think the answer is clear. We do not need a large amount of carbohydrates for our body to function. And whatever little carbohydrates we do need come from vegetables and other stuff that we eat. Everything we have has a little amount of carbohydrates. And that's what is needed for functioning of a body. We can get energy in our body to function from various other sources like fats and all of that. And when we change the source of our input energy from carbohydrates to fat, the way our body functions kind of starts changing. The insulin even starts reducing, and that is what starts curing our insulin resistance. And that is why for curing diabetes, it is in a way essential to cut down on carbohydrates and not just move to lower GI carbohydrates. It's essential to cut down on carbohydrates if you really want to fix your diabetes in the longer run.
Okay. Yeah, so looks like our audience is sort of, kind of getting it right, but, few more questions to go. Let's see what the audience does with the next few questions here. Let me stop sharing results for this particular question and move on to the next. Now, this is, I think, a question that I find personally very, very interesting. We know of a lot of people who are fit, and if something bad happens to them, we say, well, what happened? 40-year-olds getting heart attacks. We had the recent case of an ex-Indian captain who faced this issue, and more recently, a prominent TV personality who had this issue as well. So let me go ahead and launch this. Does fit mean healthy? Does a fit, slim person, is he always healthy? Okay. Votes coming in now. Roughly half the votes have come in already. All right. Two options going neck and neck. Oh, I think one of them has taken the lead now. Okay. Anybody else wanting to get their votes in? Okay, let me go ahead and end this poll right now. So it looks like the audience is split equally between options, was split equally between options 2 and 3. And then last minute, option 2 sort of, took the lead. Option 2 says health and fitness are two very different things, and we could have one but not the other. And option 3, it actually says that unfit people can be healthy but not the other way around. Fit people cannot be unhealthy. Okay, why don't I call upon Vivek? Vivek, do you agree with the 60% or the 40% or maybe even the 0%?
No, I think I would agree with essentially. I don't know the which option it was, but the fact that health and fitness are two separate things, right? And both are good for us. Both are something that we need to chase. Definitely, in some sense, people who are super fit but who may still end up being unhealthy. And like Sanjay was pointing before, right, they can be very fit, but if they still don't have the right diet, it is possible that the metabolic health within is not working well. Right. Obviously, chances are lower, but like you were saying, the examples, these are all people that were, elite athletes, high level of fitness, and yet, they had metabolic issues translating to heart attack and so on and so forth. It is possible for unhealthy people to be fit, or other way around, fit people to be unhealthy. It is possible for unhealthy people to be unfit, which is probably the worst. Right? You're not healthy, you're not fit, not a good place to be. You can be healthy, but in healthy you can be unfit, which is okay, but not really good, because I think fitness is a key part of living a good, fulfilling life, and where you can maximize your potential. But just focusing on fitness also doesn't guarantee good health.
Right, and that's an important distinction to make between fitness and with health. Okay, let's turn our attention back to the physical activity side of things a little bit. While we spoke about exercise, what about our very Indian take on fitness, which is yoga, right? So, is yoga good for diabetics? There are three options here. Please see which one you agree with the most. Okay. Looks like about half the votes have come in. The other half, I hope you're thinking long and hard. Okay, once again, we had a case where one of the options seemed like the clear favorite, and the thinkers sort of came back and equalized the score here. Okay, I'm going to wait for a little longer before I end this poll. Few more seconds. And here I go. So looks like the audience is split equally. Let me go ahead and share the results here between options 1 and 2. In fact, option 2 was a very started out as a hot favorite, and then looks like the people who actually thought about it got option 1 into the reckoning. Option 1 says it's good in general, but it does not do anything specifically for diabetics. And option 2 says that yogic practices like mindful breathing and increased flexibility actually play a curative role in diabetes. So Sanjay, what do you say? Which half of the audience do you agree with?
I agree with the second half of the audience, because if you take these lifestyle diseases, there is stress, there is sleeplessness, and there are several other things which also plays another role like which plays an important role in increasing the diabetes or predisposing them to diabetes. So if you actually focus on reducing stress by doing mindful breathing, which is pranayama, like last week, even the Americans and a couple of other universities in America and UK said that if you can follow a breathing, they gave a new name, sorry, I forgot, but in general that is pranayama that we do, and they say that it has uh, a role in helping us in preventing slash or working towards the curative path of most of the lifestyle diseases. But along, so this is not proven yet, but yes, there are quite chances that it will help in playing the curative role. But if you leave that aside, the like yoga, if you see it as any other physical activity form, which the other half has noted, which help in reducing the glucose, which will help in maintaining the blood glucose levels, helps in reducing the HbA1c, improves balance, flexibility, strength, coordination, etc.
All right. Thanks, Sanjay. So I have two more questions in this set before we sort of wrap this webinar up. So the next question is, I think, in a way, super critical. This is about, we all know that diabetes has got something to do with insulin. There's a very strong connect there. So let me go ahead and ask this question about what exactly this connect is. Right? Um, when we have diabetes, our body isn't producing as much insulin as a healthy person should. Right? Is that correct? Okay. Looks like almost all the votes are in. Some more are trickling in. All right, folks, let me go ahead and end the poll right about now. Okay, this is actually very interesting. Let me share the results here. Option 3 seems to be a hot favorite. Option 2 says our body is producing more insulin than a normal person should when we are diabetic. And option 3 says it depends on the kind of diabetes that we have. But surprisingly, nobody chose option 1, uh, which sort of seemed logical to me. But Vivek, can you tell me if I am right or if the audience is right, or rather which part of the audience is right?
I think between you and the audience, broadly, the audience is getting it right, Karthik. So, obviously, I think in type 2 diabetes, our body ends up producing more insulin than a normal person. But the problem is its effectiveness is lower, which is why we say that a person has insulin resistance. Whereas if you have type 1 diabetes, your body does not have the ability to produce insulin, which is impaired, right? So in a way, the third one is right. Type 2 diabetes, more insulin than we need, but not working well. Type 1 diabetes, not making enough insulin, which is why we need to, give it to ourselves if you have to process carbohydrate. Definitely, if you take the second question, true for type 2 diabetes, but not for type 1 diabetes. And but obviously, question one, the answer one is clearly wrong, and doesn't seem to uptake us. The only surprising thing is, while all of us in the audience are smart enough to know that is wrong, unfortunately, I would say a big double-digit percentage of patients with diabetes are actually using either insulin directly or oral medication that actually induces the body to make more insulin, which unfortunately is harming them and not helping them.
All right. Okay, let me go ahead and stop sharing the results and go to the last question in this particular set, which has to do with stress and diabetes. Right? We spoke about multiple things. We spoke about sleep. We spoke about exercise. Let's see what the link is between stress and diabetes. So the statement says that stress is linked to the onset of diabetes. Do you folks agree? Okay, we have one option that's turning out to be the hot favorite here. The second opinion makes its entry late. Okay, reversal in fortunes on my screen. Okay, I'm going to give, oh good God, the two options have now equalized. I'm going to give a few more seconds for somebody to step in and, sort of put in a tie-breaking vote.
It's okay. Even Vivek should deal with what I've been dealing all evening.
Yes, that's right. Okay, looks like almost everybody's got their votes in, and here we go. Let me go ahead and stop this and share the results. So two groups, two options in the audience, and equal support for options 2 and 3. Exceptionally high levels of stress may be the cause, but not otherwise, says option 2. Option 3 says even low levels of stress over extended time periods are a key cause of diabetes. Vivek, what do you say? Which of the 50% of the audience do you agree with?
So I give both of them half points. I think both have some element of truth in it, and obviously the first option is not the right one. And to all of you, if we believe that stress is primarily psychological, one point I'd like to make is there's a cascade of hormonal action that starts off with stress, and that what starts off as high cortisol, and over a cascading set of hormonal interactions leads to higher level of insulin, and higher level of insulin leads to insulin resistance, and that whole vicious cycle that leads to diabetes kind of gets started. And I think essentially it is not as much about high stress or low stress. Obviously, higher stress is worse off, but even low levels of stress, but consistently being stressed, also leads to a similar behavior that could make us, insulin resistant. So, in simple terms, don't assume that stress is in the mind, has nothing to do with the body, plays a critical role in the way our metabolism works. And to that extent, higher the stress, higher is your risk of getting diabetes or it becoming worse. And one needs to manage our stress. And again, like Sanjay was saying, it could be pranayama, it could be fitness, it could be many other ways, right? But I think consistently having stress is something that one should definitely avoid.
Right. Okay, thanks a lot, Vivek. And with that, we actually come to the end of the set of questions that I had for the audience. So while we open up for any questions that people in the audience have got, can I maybe request Vivek to take a quick 1 or 2 minutes and tell the audience about our offerings? I'm going to sort of go ahead and share my screen here. And here we go. So, yeah, Vivek, over to you.
Yeah, I think very quickly, we are in the business of what I would say eradicating diabetes by shaping and changing lifestyle choices. And if you were to take a look, one could be healthy, one could be unhealthy. We still have a way of helping you out. There's something called as a health 360-degree assessment or a diabetes 360-degree assessment. That's a very detailed assessment where we take not just blood work, but assess your state of fitness, your state of stress, your state of nutrition, your alignment to the circadian rhythm, etc. And based on that, if you are unhealthy, we will be able to attribute what the problem is, and if the underlying metabolism, we look deep inside into parameters that don't typically get looked into, and identify are you fixing the root cause of it or not, and again, what is the impact, and what might happen in the future. So there's a prediction of what could happen in the future. Whereas if you're healthy, this is still something that tells us what can we do to improve our what is the risk of getting diabetes, what should we be doing proactively, etc. For those who have a problem, we do have a diabetes reversal program, and towards that we have what we call a Kickstarter, and in a safe and natural way, and I'll talk about it in the next slide. We help people start their journey towards reversing it, and we work with multiple clients where we've been able to get them off being diabetes. And once we fix them, right, then there's a way to continuously engage with us in what I would call is improving health. So we have multiple offerings. One is at any time you want, you can subscribe to the healthy food. You can subscribe to our fitness programs. You can do a diagnostic over a year, every quarter, etc. The healthy food that we come up with is something that we make available to our clients and so on. So there are multiple ways we are able to improve the state of health. But moving forward quickly, I think the diabetes reversal Kickstarter is where we guarantee outcomes, right? If you have a problem, be it in terms of HbA1c levels, glucose levels with whatever medication you are on, etc., we can guarantee that you will see positive outcomes in a 10-day period, right? And this 10-day period is for you to experience the program, and in which we provide you with what you need to eat. We provide you with the fitness classes where Sanjay and team are going to ensure, based on your levels of fitness, the right levels and the right levels of rigor are there, or lack of it, but it's still effective. Right? We do the diagnostics, we do consultation with doctors, etc. So everything that you need, single place, and we don't tell you what to do, we do it for you, and you will see phenomenal outcomes in terms of your health. And obviously, we are so confident that we're seeing money back guarantee if you don't see outcomes. So that's something that I would urge you take a look at and reach out to our team if you believe that's something you want to explore.
All right. Thank you, Vivek. And so with that, I'm going to sort of let any of people in the audience come up with any questions that they have. If you have anything to ask us, you can go ahead and put up your query in the chat window, and one of us will take it up. You guys can, of course, reach out to any one of us from the team. I think somebody from the team has been in touch with all of you to coordinate this webinar. The same channels, whether via email or via WhatsApp, would work to get in touch with our team as well. Yeah, any questions, folks? Okay. So let's wait for maybe one more minute to see. Yeah, Samir seems to have a question. When can we stop carb and eat healthy food? The sugar level will decrease from day one, but how do we sustain diabetes with carb foods? Yeah, who wants to take a shot at it? Vivek?
I'll take an initial shot. Monica, Sanjay can chip in. So it's a two-step process. One step, because when you say reversal, what it really means is not only are your what should I say, HbA1c, fasting blood sugar levels, etc., at the levels they need to be. It also means your body's metabolism is back to normal, right? But to get there, if you are diabetic, first step is to ensure that you get your glucose levels down, HbA1c levels down. But that is not the goal, right? That is a milestone. The goal is to improve on your insulin resistance. So you have insulin that's not working well, what's called insulin resistance. That needs to be converted to insulin that actually works well, which is called insulin sensitive. And that's a journey. And once you get to having insulin sensitivity, which is good, then you eat normal food and your body will respond normally.
And I think that pretty much sums it up. The reason we give up carbs is, like he said, to improve your insulin, bring you from insulin resistance to insulin sensitivity. And in the journey, actually, you will see your blood sugar levels stabilizing very, very fast. Once you go off carbs, it is the fixing of the insulin resistance, that takes a little longer time, and that depends on how long you have been diabetic and how long it will take. And if we have had not just one, multiple people in our program who have joined our program, been on our program, kind of fix their insulin sensitivity, and now pretty much eat normal food, and their HbA1c and blood
Normal.
sugar continue to remain normal. We even had a message chat. I had a chat with someone last week who said, I went and ate a full meal, South Indian Sapan meal for Janmashtami, and I checked my insulin and it was still kind of stopped our program about 3-4 months ago. Of course, he continues to follow some principles, like we support him. So the goal, what we will help you in, is getting there, and that is what we want to kind of cure in the longer term.
And if I have to give a physical activity point of view, so when you're diabetic, I'm assuming that most of them start with a very poor fitness levels, and also more than the fitness levels, you will start off with a very poor body composition. By a very poor body composition, what I mean is your muscle mass is considerably less, your fat mass is more, like your bone density might be less, you might be retaining too much of water. So there are multiple parameters. So with a poor body composition, you start your fitness journey on the day one, but with this program, you eat right, you will be working on your fitness levels also. So working on the fitness levels along with the right nutrition will help in redoing your body composition. Your muscle mass will become more, your fat will become less. So after 3 or 4 months, even if you eat a bit of carbs, or even if you eat a full South Indian meal, your body is capable enough to shed all the muscles into the glucose into the muscles that you have built, and not in the fat. So you won't see a lot of spike in your blood sugar levels. So yes, definitely you can go back to eating carbs and still not being diabetic.
Yeah, that's something to look forward to as we go along, and hopefully people are able to reverse the diabetes to the point where they're able to eat sweets as well. Um, you know, that I think would be the ultimate goal here. Okay, any other questions? And Samir, I hope that answered whatever you had in mind. Like I said, if not, you can either put up a counter question here or get in touch with any of our team members. Okay, so looks like there actually aren't any more questions from what I can see. Let me just check the Q&A as well. No, nothing here as well. Okay, so in that case, why don't we wrap up this particular session here? And like Vivek said, the HR Kickstarter is a very good way to sort of go ahead and see if the program that we have in mind is something that can work for you. So we would urge you to sort of look at that seriously. And if you want more information about the program or about the Kickstarter in particular, please do reach out to us. And on that note, let's go ahead and wrap up this particular session. So thanks everybody, and stay healthy, and have a good rest of the weekend.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for
Thank
joining
you,
in.
everyone.
Have a healthy life.